candle, what a bright world this would be.
Hello, friends. I am Carrol Nash, and I am here to help present the Christopher program. But first, I would like to introduce Father James Keller, founder of the Christophers. Father?
Mr. Nash, you've been very generous to the Christopher program. We appreciate having you back again.
Thank you, Father.
Would you please start off our program for us?
I'll be delighted.
Thank you.
Today's Christopher story might aptly be called Recognition is Not Everything. It concerns an incident in the life of the 19th century French painter Paul Cézanne. Though he is known today as the father of modern art, he struggled for 35 years in complete oblivion. And during those years, he worked and painted unceasingly. His hours were spent because of his love of art, rather than his desire for recognition. His paintings were hung only in the homes of indifferent neighbors. Then, one day, the chance visit of a Paris art dealer changed Cézanne's whole life. The dealer took several canvases and arranged to have them exhibited in Paris. The great of the art world were stunned because they recognized the master's technique and approach. And Cézanne himself was astonished, but for a very different reason. When he arrived at the gallery on the arm of his son, what he saw brought tears to his eyes. "Look," he whispered, They've framed them. That's a good example of the humility of the great, isn't it, Father Keller?
Yes, it is, Carrol Nash. And friends, it's wise for all of us to be very humble in the sight of God. Everything that we possess, we've received from him. And incidentally, it's merely a loan. And one day, each one of us, you and you and you and myself, must stand before Almighty God and answer for the way we have used the talent, small or large, that he has entrusted to us. In an effort to help you to discover and put to effective use your power for good, we bring you this Christopher program week after week. We try to remind you that there is something that you as one individual can do that no other person can accomplish. God himself has assigned a mission in life for you to perform, and that mission is delegated to no other living individual. So we constantly say that instead of keeping your good ideas to yourself, put them to work. Apply them in your own home, at your office, in the classroom, on the bus, in the factory, anywhere and everywhere. And make a special effort to blend the changeless truths of Christ into every nook and corner of public as well as private life, especially in such vital fields as government, education, literature, entertainment, and labor relations. We heard not long ago from a man in upstate New York who is showing a lot of initiative along Christopher lines. While working each day for a living, he is also taking a correspondence course so that he will be fitted to play a more active and intelligent role in raising the standards of government. God bless him for it. Now, friends, it is time for a visit with our guest. Please. Friends, as our guest on this Christopher program, we have Mr. Edward L. Kelly, and he is a specialist in toys. I think you're, you tell the name of your firm.
Lewis, Marx and Company. We're the largest manufacturers of toys in the world.
The largest in the world?
That's right.
Well, what is your post for them?
I'm in the sales department.
Well, you have to scatter the toys around.
Scatter them around and get the distribution on it.
Well, friends, Mr. Kelly told me some very interesting things about toys. I'm going right back to toys myself after a little talk from him. But I wish you would just give our audience some of your wonderful ideas on the function of toys.
Well, of course, as you know, they've existed in the culture of all people throughout the ages.
Yes, to develop that a bit.
And
way back in the early
back even to prehistoric man, they found remnants of early playthings.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, the early toys are all the results of the parents' imagination
mm-hmm.
and the parents' handiwork.
Mm-hmm.
And today, it's developed into quite a sizable industry.
There's one point Mr. Kelly made for in our little discussion, friends, and that was the part that toys should play and the part that general toys and educational toys. I wish you would explain that.
Well, actually, I would say it's most important that as we realize that each child has his own rate of development, by both physically and mentally. So the first consideration the parent has to have is to fit the toy to the child. And by that I mean there's only the parent that actually knows his own child that intimately to properly select the toys involved. And then, of course, toys, unlike most adult purchases, can't be postponed. I mean, if you need a new sofa for your living room or a new rug, and you can put it off for a couple of years if you can't afford it. But when your child needs a velocipede or a wagon, you either buy it when it needs it and it's suiting to it, or you don't buy it at all. So when you talk about the educational aspects of it, from what I've seen in the papers and magazines through recent years, there's entirely too much stress placed on purely the educational value of toys. I mean, as I see it, the primary function of a toy is to entertain, because if it doesn't entertain, it'll never educate. You see, everything a child handles or comes in contact with, everything he experiences is an education. But unless you get the interest of the child and hold it with good, solid play value in the toy, you'll never get them to take it just for educational value.
No, they must like it first.
That's right.
Yeah. Well,
like if I force you out to play golf, I mean, you either like it or you don't. If I force you, it's not fun anymore.
Well, you wouldn't have to force me, but I can't get time. I'd love to play, but it's been a long time since I last played. But I must admit that this is the first time I saw the difference, until you told me the difference between the normal toy and the educational toy. The educational toy has a part to play, but it shouldn't be foisted on children unless they want it.
That's right. I mean, it's got to be suited to the child. And there's many a novelty toy, for example, that people, you say, universally condemn because there's no participation of the child in it. But the novelty toys, there's many of them that give more enjoyment to the parents than they do to the children.
Yeah.
And anything that gives enjoyment like that, it's impossible to put a price tag on the smile of an adult or the laugh of a child.
Yeah. It's a good outlet too.
That's right. I mean, it's just strictly for their entertainment and their fun.
Well, oftentimes we don't think that the Lord wants us to have a little legitimate fun, joy, in a normal, wholesome way in this life as a little preparation for the life to come.
That's right.
And I think that the toys perform that service too. Now, any final word that you would have as a suggestion?
Well, I would say that it's most important for the parents to remember that the toys are never a substitute for themselves.
That's
and
good.
that too many parents think if they go out and spend a lot of money on toys, they've done their duty as far as entertaining and educating their child in the home.
Excellent, yeah.
So I think it's most important that the parents participate with their children. I mean, there's many games that the parents would enjoy as well as the children would. And especially now with the many suburban homes, there's all sorts of outdoor activities that everybody can join in. There's some wonderful books written for children that the parents should take and read. And many of those books are very simply written on quite intricate subjects. I mean, subjects that the average parent thinks he knows, but he may have known it 30 or 40 years ago. And he actually should read it in a very simple form that the child has to read it in now to refresh himself on it. So I think the parents should definitely participate with the child.
Well, you're a good Christopher in the toy business. God bless you and keep you for many years.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Kelly, we're going to have the privilege of a little musical number by the great pianist, Miss Pauline Carter. you, Pauline Carter. Friends, on this Christopher program, we have as our guest a teenager, Susan Martin, who, if you have followed any of our Christopher programs in the past, you may have heard her reading from the Holy Scripture for us occasionally. And Susan has some very fine ideas of her own, but I'll leave it to her to tell you about this career you're thinking of, Susan.
I'm thinking of going into teaching. I'm going to college now to learn. And, well, the main reason that I've wanted to choose this field, not only because there is such a great call for it, but because, this may sound funny, I don't know.
That's all right.
I've always felt that there's so much that I could do as a person to help children form themselves. I know the influence that teachers have had on me are so great. I could run down a whole list of them, of what they've given to me as a person.
Well, that's very nice to speak so well of them.
I would really love to have that type of influence on someone else.
Well, teaching is a field where you can. I mean, just think, every year, 25, 30, 40 young minds and hearts and souls you're molding. And, well, it's a hard preparation, it's a hard life, but a very satisfying one.
It is. When you feel that you've done something to not only contribute to a few children, but perhaps to the betterment of the nation. Oh, these phrases sound so big and meaningless, but really it's true. I don't know, you feel that you've given so much. You don't feel that you've just come and you've lived and you've died and so what.
Susan, I'd like to ask you, you're much nearer the teenage stage than I am, but what would you say? There's been, about a certain amount of complaint. I don't think much of it is justified, and we're not concerned about the complaints about teenagers as much as we are in getting them to spread their wings and bring out the great idealism that's in them.
The whole thing, I think, with the teenager is that they have a tendency to just, after they've graduated from grammar school or even high school, they want to stay in the little rut in which they were born, and they I don't even know if it's they want to, but they do. Their ideals are extended to the corner grocery store or candy store, and that's just where it ends, and they just think of making a living, whereas so few, at least as I was saying, in college we get quite a few figures on how many children, teenagers, do go on to higher education, and you'd be surprised at how few actually go past the grammar school level. And, of course, that limits you to what you can do, not only for your own personal gain or betterment, but for the betterment of your community as well, and your children.
Now, you, speaking with a voice of experience you're among teenagers now, and we have tried in our way, and I just want to check with you to see if you think this is correct. We say that down when you're 12, 13, 14, you ought to try to pick a career with a purpose, some great goal in life where you're going to do something for the love of God and love of others. And if you start preparing for that, even if you change later, you're preparing for something. Is that practical?
Oh, that's so true. Oh, yes, Father. When you've got something in mind, it doesn't, even if you want to be the President of the United States, you know how some children say that. When people are doing something or they're reaching for something, they develop so much more than if they just accept what they've got and take what comes. If they reach out for things. That's why I'm reaching for teaching. I don't know what'll happen if I become a teacher, but
I think you're very wise, and I think many teenagers and parents and teachers and everybody else could get a good reminder from what you're saying, that if you hit for a goal, suppose you decide now to be a writer or something, you're going to develop qualities within you. Now, is there one final suggestion you would have for teenagers?
Teenagers as students can do so much. Take a note of the Hungarian revolt. That was a students' revolt, as you know, and the world response was due mainly to students. If students sort of unite, not as a body to destroy or feel their oats or anything, but to really push the younger generation ahead. I know that so many kids of my age have a tendency to ridicule things that we take for granted, but that impress the younger children so much, like school. You know, you make fun of school, oh, it's nothing, and then they take it in and they react in this way. They really look up to teenagers so much, and if they just realize the power that they had for good.
Well, thank you very much, Susan Martin. God has given every young person, but young have such great hope, he's given them a power for good, as Susan Martin just said. And if they would just develop that and use it for the greater glory of God and the good of souls all over, they'd bring out so much in themselves. Now, Susan, we're going to have a reading from the Holy Bible now by J. Carrol Nash, and just before Mr. Nash reads it, I would recommend that teenagers do a little reading, just even a few verses out of the Holy Bible every day, and use it as a means of meditation and developing those great inner values that are so much needed for any kind of work they go into. Well, God bless you, and now we will sit back and listen to J. Carrol Nash.
Deign, O God, to rescue me. O Lord, make haste to help me. Let them be put to shame and confounded who seek my life, and let them be turned back in disgrace who desire my ruin. Let them retire in their shame and say to me, aha, aha. But may all who seek you exult and be glad in you. And may those who love your salvation say ever, God be glorified. But I am afflicted and poor. O God, hasten to help me. You are my help and my deliverer. O Lord, hold not back.
Thank you, J. Carrol Nash. And all of us can repeat that prayer that you just offered. O Lord, make haste to help me. Remember that the Lord is always waiting, but he wants us to turn to him like a child does to his father or mother. We must do something in our part. The Lord will never be outdone in generosity, but we should turn to him, especially in our needs. In Christopher work, we constantly say that we can be partners with God. We can be instruments of his love and truth. Well, don't try to depend upon yourself, because really of ourselves we are nothing. Depend upon God. Do everything through him, and you will begin your heaven on earth. Now, let us have a visit with our next Christopher guest. Friends, this is Mr. James Dafoe. He's a copywriter at the Geyer Advertising Agency here in New York. Now, we expect you to tell us what work you do.
Well, I write TV commercials for Disneyland, Father, on Nash, Hudson, and Rambler automobiles.
How did you happen to get into this type of work?
Well, I was always interested in writing, and I felt that there was a tremendous opportunity in advertising.
Well, they do a very good job, but nevertheless, it means a great deal of responsibility, doesn't it?
It does, Father, yes, and it takes a great deal of time, too. Actually, that's one of the problems, I think, with many businessmen today. They feel they don't have time, and they certainly have good intentions. I know with myself, for instance, about 2 years ago, I was looking around for some particular work that I might do and would be particularly fitted for, and I heard an appeal on the radio for the Cleveland Better Business Bureau. They wanted a writer, so I went over there, and I decided I'd do that for a few weeks. I thought it was just going to be too onerous a job. And actually, I found out that it was a wonderful job. I had an awful lot of fun. It didn't take up too much time, because I think so many times people forget that you can reduce any job to a routine. And
That's right.
A couple hours a week after you get on to writing a show is fine.
Well, it offers tremendous possibilities, doesn't it? I mean, you can affect the thought of millions for good, can't you?
That's right, Father. Actually, I understand, I was reading in a magazine that people spend more time watching television than they do working.
Well, you're a good advertising representative. Tell me, Mr. Dafoe, the businessman, in his job, he has great responsibilities, but what about his responsibilities outside? Number one, the home.
That's
Can you make
right,
any
Father.
suggestions on that? Because there's a tendency to get so absorbed in business, the home becomes incidental, and that should always be primary.
That's true. A good friend of mine who is a copy chief and who is has a very difficult job and one that puts quite heavy demands on his time, makes a rule to spend at least one day a week, no matter how important the jobs he's working on. It's at least one day a week with his family. In other words, the whole day. He'll go away with them on a Sunday or something like that. That's sometimes very hard to do. It may not seem so, but
yes, that's right.
it can be difficult. You're pressed, and you have to put first things first.
Yeah, as long as you don't get ulcers. Well, another thing, what about the businessman taking an interest in affairs? Have you got any suggestions that way, without interfering with his home, his business, but nevertheless he has obligations to community affairs, to national affairs, and so forth?
That's right, Father. Something like the Big Brother movement. Another friend of mine, a young fellow, got interested in that, and he's talks about it all the time.
Explain what that is, if you will.
Well, that's a movement whereby people try to help young boys who are having troubles or who have perhaps not the very best environment, and they will take it upon themselves to go in and try to help out that environment. It's really social work, and it's a very high level too.
They would take a particular case.
That's right.
And do what they can. That takes
boy
time and
would take him to baseball games, win his friendship.
That's very good. Well, that's a very holy work. That's doing what the Lord would do, taking an interest in those who have trouble.
That's right.
Now, what about government? What can the young businessman do?
Well, for one thing, he can try to take part in the local government. So many of us live in small communities, and there are problems that come up, and we just don't have time for them. But it really does pay off if you can keep your finger in and try to participate.
Well, you're a very good representative, Guy Regency. Tell them you're right on the job. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Father.
And now, friends, we're going to be favored by the great harpist, Gene Bianco. Thank you very much. Friends, our time is just about up, and now just before the close, may I bring you the Christopher Thought for the week. A novelist was asked to speak to a group of undergraduates at a large Eastern university. All those present had literary ambitions, and the author began by saying, "How many of you would really want to be writers?" Every single student raised his hand. "In that case," said the novelist, "there's no point in wasting your time here. Go home and start writing." Well, this seemed a little brusque, but there is a point to what he said. If you want to do anything, you have to start doing it. If you want to be a cook, get in the kitchen. If you want to swim, get in the water. And if you want to do something for the love of God and man, you have to make the first move. God will help you the rest of the way. Friends, it has been a privilege and joy to have this visit with you. Don't forget for one moment how important you are in God's sight, that he has assigned a mission in life for you to perform that he has given to no one else. In short, there is no substitute for you. You can start right now to be a Christopher or Christ bearer. Do whatever you can to improve the great spheres of influence, fields such as government, education, literature, entertainment, and labor relations. Don't spend valuable time complaining and criticizing or finding fault. Remember the Christopher motto, better to light one candle than to curse the darkness. Be a candle lighter, not a blower outer. In the Christopher movement, friends, we have no memberships, no meetings, no dues. Our Christopher News Notes, I have a copy here, are being sent to more than 1 million individuals each month free of charge. You too may have them without any cost by simply sending a postcard to the Christophers, New York, 17, New York. In conclusion, may I offer for you this simple prayer. I vow and consecrate to God all that is in me, my memory and my actions to God the Father, my understanding and my words to God the Son, my will and my thoughts to God the Holy Spirit, my heart and my body, my tongue, my senses, and all my sorrows to the sacred humanity of Jesus Christ, who was contented to be betrayed into the hands of wicked men and to suffer the torment of the cross. Friends, next week at this same time and on this same station, we will bring you another Christopher program. Thank you, and God bless you.
And if everyone lit just one little candle, what a bright world